Alright, so we're going to be going into Game 3 of Team Elite versus Extraterrestrials. Right now, XT is up 2-0 after two fairly decisive games, actually. So, right now we're going to be having Team Elite sending out Linkage, a Zerg player. And from XT we do have Bright. Let's look at their stats. So, Linkage has a fairly decent win rate, 55% against Protoss, and against Zerg for XT Bright we do have, where is he? 50%. So a little bit of an edge goes to Linkage, but not too much. This map is Whirlwind, quite a larger map. Of course, with proxy pylons, any sort of gateway aggression is completely at your front door. But if it gets into the later game, then it will be a bit harder for the Protoss player. Taking a third base can be a bit tricky for the Protoss player, but if he does control his units well, if he gets a good sizable army and force fields well, he will be able to secure that third base. But when it gets into the fourth and fifth base is when it gets a bit hard. I believe that this is not a cross-spawn only map. So, game starting up, Whirlwind. We'll take a look at the map once that loading screen starts up. I would not be surprised to see both players go for a very fast economic opener, maybe even 3 hatch from the Zerg player. I wouldn't say before pool, but possibly before any queens. But of course, cannons can deny that, and if Bright does go for that gateway in base once again, he will be able to provide a lot of aggression in the early game. Alright, in the lower left corner of Whirlwind, we have our Protoss player. From Xtraterrestrials, it is Bright. Manners coming out from both players. And in the upper left, or upper right corner, excuse me, in the same map, Whirlwind, we have the Zerg player. From Team Elite, it is Linkage, doing some drone pairing there, and messing it up. So far, no sort of shenanigans coming from players. We do have a standard opening, at least so far, from Linkage. Overlord being produced, and Overlord being sent to the left corner. So, this is not a cross-spawns only map. This will, of course, mean that the players will have a slightly harder time scouting their opponents. But another gateway in base coming from the Protoss player, so XT seems to actually like that a lot. Myself, I prefer to go for that Forge Fast Expand, but I do prefer a more macro-oriented style. So gateway going to be thrown down, and most likely Probe Scout coming out. We'll see which way he goes. He's going to go to the upper left corner first as well. So he will be spotting that Zerg base fairly soon, but he will not be able to do any sort of denying of the hatchery. And no gas coming, and another hatch first coming out from Team Elite. So, seeing a slight pattern here with these two teams playing risky. Of course, on this map, it is harder to scout your opponent, harder to get any sort of aggression across the map in the early game, so hatch first is perfectly acceptable. On the last map, though, it was fairly short, not nearly as long as Whirlwind is. Right, just throwing down that Cybercore. Bit of a different build from Starfire, having 1 gas instead of 2, so this will mean that he is going to have a slower transition into tech, and also slightly less gas income, but he will be able to get that expansion up slightly sooner, and possibly be able to produce more of those production buildings, maybe gateways if he wants to go for that sort of aggression. Probe did scout the base hatch first of the Zerg player, and gas finishing up right now. This will not mean quick circling speed right as that finishes, as the pool finishes, but it will give him that edge in about a minute and then of course he does need to actually research it. So about 3 minutes will be when Zergling Speed comes out, and that will be before any sort of large aggression comes out from the Protoss player. Queen's being started up as well, and that probe is going to have to get out of there if it wants to live. Expansion and wall going to be started up for Bright. Mothership core going to be providing a lot of safety, but if a large swell of Zerglings comes in, the Mothership core will not be able to defend everything. And we do have a Zealot on the way as well, so going to be banking up a little bit of gas, possibly wanting to be able to throw down tech slightly more quickly, or maybe just to be able to start a sentry for just that slight bit more of added safety. And we should see 3 gates coming down from the Protoss player, third one, or maybe a forge if he wants to go for a more late game focused build. Actually only 2 gateways, so this is going to be 3 gateways, possibly going to be throwing one down in his main base, but this is a very peculiar wall. Slightly weak to banelings and zerglings, or even roaches and hydras, but hydras are a long way away. This pylon is the weak point in the wall. Zergling's going to be running up here, see that zealot in the wall off, and back off immediately. And Zergling Speed going to be finishing up in about half a minute. We have, how many queens do we have on the field? We have 3 queens, one's going to be used for creep spread. Not a whole lot of Zerg players actually focus on the creep spread, but I'm guessing this is just to be able to connect his bases. And we do have a drone heading over to this base in order to secure a third. Mothership core is going to be getting some map control. Zergling Speed, however, will mean that the Zerglings can significantly outrun the Mothership core. And Warp Gate just finishing up. Again, no sort of Warp Gate aggression coming out from the Protoss player. Instead, we have a Stargate. Now, I'm saying there's 2 possible openers with a Stargate. One is to get an Oracle. This will give, it's very risky to get an Oracle. It allows for very high, very fast drone killing. But if it is scouted, if it's spotted, oracles are very weak, very flimsy, and they will die fairly quickly. But if we have Phoenix come out, they're sturdier, but they do kill off units more slowly. And this Overlord going uncontested right now, so actually it probably will see that Stargate. Let's look at the vision of our Team Elite player. Yeah, he's definitely going to spot that. Nothing coming out from... Actually, we do have Warp Gate aggression. When did that pylon get down? But having to cancel that third base, if Bright had waited just a slight bit longer, he actually would have been able to kill it, because it would have finished. But this Overlord going to be spotting everything, and a Phoenix coming out, so going to be doing that more sturdy style. And this is not surprising at all. Especially since he canceled the third base, it's going to be a lot easier for the Zerg player to be defending his 2 bases. And Mothership there, just to be able to recall. 2 Spine Crawlers started up, and recall does go down, but Spine Crawlers finishing up in the natural expansion. Third base coming down on the 3 o'clock position this time. And fast upgrades coming out. So this is most indicative of... Linkage going for fast ultras. Most times you don't see upgrades coming out this quickly. At least not the melee upgrades. Usually you want to be starting a Spire more quickly. If you go for Zergling Muta. Meaning that you want all of your gas invested into Mutalisks instead of these upgrades. But we do have the upgrades coming, and the layer not even close to finishing. Actually, that's pretty close. About 30 seconds left. And I wouldn't be surprised to see if he immediately threw down an infestation pit to be going for those Ultralisks. And right now he is fairly safe. He has a few roaches out and a whole lot of Zerglings. This Phoenix is going to be scouting out to the third base. But right now we have Immortals on the way. Actually only 1 so far. So we are going to have a little bit of security against those Ultralisks. There we go. But we do have quite a lot of bank building up for the Zerg player, and with only Zealots and Sentries so far. This is going to be quite a lot harder to hold off if he does go for that Ultra Tech. And actually it's Hydras. Why would he go for Hydralisks? Maybe misclick, but maybe wanting to fake some Roach Hydra. I would be surprised though if Bright didn't click on the units and see that there are no upgrades for the Roach Hydra, and immediately assume that it's going to be something else. But maybe the Hydralisks are just for security. We do already have Colossus on the way though, so perhaps there's a timing that Bright could hit where there's only Hydras and no Ultralisks. And a Baneling Nest coming too. This is a very odd build coming out from Linkage. Void Rays being produced as well, so this will add even more bulk to his army to deal with those Ultras, if they do come out. But very interesting that he's going for the melee and carapace upgrades with Hydralisks. So I'm not really sure what's going on. He hasn't thrown down an infestation pit yet either. So usually this is a 3-base style, maybe wanting to prolong it into a longer game, but this will allow the Protoss to get slight or very large economy if he doesn't do something soon. And with the Colossus and Force Fields available to him, it's going to be very difficult for the Zerg player to do anything, really. And his army supply is fairly even. Actually, the Protoss player being ahead, and he should see the 1-1 upgrades on those Zerglings. And even though it is Roach Hydra in the back of this, there's not a whole lot of units. And Infestation Pit finally starting. I'm still really confused as to what this build is. Baneling's coming as well, or Baneling Speed, so he's just kind of investing into everything. It's very odd. And Groove Spines for those Hydralisks as well. They already have the speed augment, I believe. Yes, we do. But this army, not quite scary yet. I would actually like to see some Archons being mixed in, and we do have a Templar Archives as well. That will be most likely for Storm to deal with those Hydras, but the Templar can of course be morphed into Archons and do significant damage versus basically all Zerg units, because you do extra damage versus Bio as an Archon with that Psionic Shockwave. Well defended third base from our XT player. He has 3 Colossus out right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if he could produce a 4th one. I would actually like to see him taking a 3rd base, or a 4th base, excuse me, fairly soon. He's getting close to the maxed point. And we have lots of Banelings and Hydras. If the force fields are good... Okay, now we have a +1 attack upgrade coming out. It's very confused. So his forces are going to be significantly weaker in the upgrade front. He does have the 2 armor, of course. Actually, this is fairly even. Bright not spending his Chrono Boost on his... actually, not really spending his Chrono Boost at all. Bit of a supply block coming out from the Protoss player, and Zerg is basically maxed. So 4 bases, I wouldn't be surprised to see if he took another one. And actually, he should be throwing some drones from his main base onto the 4th that he has, just to get slightly better economy. Proxy Pylon going up in the middle of the map. Odd positioning there. He's going to see these Banelings. Actually, not sure if he did, because Linkage, there we go, pulled his Banelings back, but there are still quite a lot of force fields. We have, let me click on the sentries, we have, I believe, 4 almost full energy sentries, the only one without 4 force fields. Actually, there are 2 without 4 force fields, but that will be quickly remedied. And we have Archons on the field as well, so no Storm being researched. We have War Prism on the way as well, but big engagement coming in. Force fields slightly late, and Baneling's not going to be doing much of anything. Actually, there's a slight hole in the force fields to the left, but Time Warp's going down as well. This is a very bad situation for the Protoss player to be in, but he's still doing quite a good job. Those force fields and those Time Warps giving him a lot of aid in that battle, and he's actually going to be coming out ahead. Of course, the Zerg is able to remax on Roaches, but Templar being produced as well. There's more Archons, and with good force fields again, actually he lost all of his sentries, so going to be harder for him to hold off the roach push that Linkage is throwing out. Fifth base coming from Linkage as well. No fourth yet from Bright, so he is basically all in on these two bases. He does have quite a lot of bank, and he should be throwing down another expansion just to get that gas income. As I said before, Protoss very gas dependent, and we have Vipers on the way. Actually, did he cancel that? Where'd that Viper go? But I saw a Viper on the production screen. Not sure if he canceled it or if he finished it, but we do have a fourth base coming out, and not sure. I do believe that Linkage saw it, or if he was just... Nope, didn't see it. Now he sees it. So he should be sending his forces down there to be able to deny that base. But nice Zealot warp in, nice harassment coming in from XT Bright. He's going to be creating a little bit of indecision, but he is going to have to cancel this fourth base. As soon as he sees the amount of units, he should be canceling that. His force is not even moving into position, and he's not going to cancel it. Just kidding. Whew. Very close there. Making me nervous. But lots of Zealot aggression. That Warp Prism doing work. I believe that it was killed. Nope, just kidding. It's still there. But he's doing a lot of damage. He sees the Infestation Pit. He sees the Hive. Actually, he sees the Dead Hive now. And he can cancel these upgrades if he focuses them down, but he's, as of right now, just focusing on the tech structures, not bothering with the upgrades. He is going to basically limit the production capabilities of Linkage to... no, he's going to be able to produce Zerglings and Roaches, but that is not a very good army composition. The upgrades finishing up, attack level 2 and Carapace level 3 finishing up, and another spawning pool started as well, but he doesn't need to have that. More warp-in may be coming from this pylon. We do have lots of units being cleaned up from Protoss player, but he should be warping in more units. I would actually like to see him throw down a Dark Shrine if he's going to be going for this harassment. And an Ultralisk Cavern, where is that? Actually that's not on... Ultralisk Cavern, where is that? Okay, so that's in the natural expansion. But more aggression coming out, more harassment, and actually army positioning itself to take out this fifth base. Full energy Vipers. Do we have any Templar in the army? We do. So this Templar are going to be able to feed back and storm the army, but a counterattack coming from Linkage, going to be maybe forcing a recall. There are two cannons here. Maybe a warp-in could help, but actually the army is not with the Mothership Core, and he's actually probably going to lose this third base. But right now across the map we have the Protoss player pushing into the fourth base of the Zerg. The third was taken out. He can immediately throw down that expansion again, but he is going to be losing... the Zerg player is going to be losing his fourth base, possibly even more, and with his units having to stream across the map rather than being in their bulk that they usually are, he is going to have a hard time engaging this army. A nice pulse coming out, storms coming down, but two Colossus almost being taken out, almost third Colossus, and two Colossus do go down. Hallucinations on the map as well. And he is going to be mopping up this army. Lots of Ultras in the production tab, so we should see a lot of Void Rays and Immortals being produced in the future, but he may be able to take this game before those Ultralisks pop, because they take such a long time to build. If he manages to take out this hatchery, he'll take out the economy a lot, and actually warp in the main base from that Warp Prism as well, and he could... Why are there probes up here? He could potentially warp in some units to deal with that fifth base as well. Ultralisks are going to be popping very soon, and they do come out, but they are going to be coming out, and actually to a really bad rally. So he will be able to clean up these forces, but he has lost a lot of stuff. He's lost a lot of his tech, he's lost a lot of his buildings. If you look at the main base, there's still harassment going on. He's going to be losing this hatchery most likely. And this Void Ray is basically uncontested. There's one queen here. It probably won't take out the Void Ray, actually. No upgrades, and there are upgrades for the queen, so the queen will take out this Void Ray. This harassment finally going to be shut down, but he's lost a lot. He's on basically 2 mining bases. Maybe a third one if he saturates this again. But he is having to rebuild his Hydroden. I believe the Ultralisk Cavern was shut down as well. So he has a lot of bank, but not really a whole lot of units to produce. We have lots of Archons. We do again have Mortals, and I'm guessing he forgot about the Stargate because Void Rays at this point would be very good. And a hidden base coming from Bright. So taking a 4th base in the northwest position of the map. And this Zergling scouted this base, and most likely there are Zerglings on this base as well. So I think that Linkage thinks that was the final push, and he's just going to be sitting back, droning up. But little does he know that there's an expansion up here. Of course, there aren't very many probes to mine from it. This geyser is mined out. This base is almost mined out, and he's going to transfer his probes. Ooh, that's very risky. He should at least position his army in the center of the map. I believe these probes aren't going to be spotted, but man, if they had come in the wrong spot, those probes would have been dead. This expansion would have been dead, and my throat hurts a lot. But we have a lot of Templar, Archons, and an Immortal coming out here. We have, looks like the army composition is Ultralisk, Roach, Hydra for now. Lots of static defense being started up for Linkage as well. More harassment coming in. Where did this Docker come from? I think it was forgotten in the corner of the map, and he is actually going to be taking out the spawning pool. So, doing more annoying things. And actually no blink. What are the upgrades for the Protoss player? It looks like he has +3 attack and +1 armor. So he could be getting more upgrades. This base finally being set up and saturated. Got good probe production as well, and he should throw some guys into gas. This will also allow him, if he puts some pylons around, to harass this 5th base very easily. Right now, though, we just have a very passive point in the game, pathogen glands coming out, so possibly wanting to go into that Broodlord tech. He does have his hive once again. No spire though, and actually these buildings are going to start... Nope, just kidding, there's an Overlord pooping. But if he did not have that Overlord pooping, it would mean that those buildings would end up dying. And I don't think we have a spire on the field, so this is quite odd. He's going for that infestation pit. Actually going for the pathogen glands. And possibly... Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Duh, there's Ultralisks on the field, he doesn't want them microing. One Zergling just hanging out at the base here, and we don't have any observers actually on the field, so the creep spread is a little bit out of control right at the doorstep of that 3rd base. And this one Zergling will be preventing that other 3rd base, or the 4th base, the actual 4th base, as opposed to the hidden 4th base. So he's going to have to produce an observer eventually. Actually, he has a probe on the other base as well, and that roach is just going to be burrowing, regenerating its HP very quickly. And this army over here postured to take out this potential 4th base over here. And actually, Ultralisks just being sent up by themselves, not sure why he's doing that. Those could be very easily intercepted and killed. But the rest of his army is ready to attack the 3rd. So maybe he was assuming that the forces would move out onto the map and be caught out of position. But actually is already out of position. If we look at the income tab, fairly equal actually. His Protoss just slightly more ahead on the gas count. The gas guys is on this 3rd actually not being saturated. We have lots of Void Rays. We should see more Colossus being produced as well. But lots of Void Rays, Immortals, and Templar. So he does have a nice army composition. Actually... no infestors on the field. Those queens could be feedbacked very easily, and actually losing one Ultralisk for free, it looks like he was on move command, but he should be feedbacking those Vipers and those queens. These infestors do have the ability to fungal, and a blinding cloud comes down, but I'm guessing that doesn't prevent storm. So no spellcasting, or spellcasting isn't interrupted by blinding cloud, and those ultras just melting before all of these high armor damage units. And actually, looks like the Protoss player is going to be ahead in supply for pretty much the first time in this game. And he is remaxing with, I don't know what he's remaxing with actually, Zealots and Templars. So he's going to be just running around, sniping off bases. I'm surprised he doesn't have his Mothership Core with this army. He could just snipe a base, recall, Or snipe a base, run over to this base, snipe a base. But we do have a 5th base being taken on this side of the map, in the south side. More Hydras being produced, Hydra Ultra. But this army composition, very scary. I believe all of those Templar died, but man, he has a lot of Immortals. And Stalker is also going to be doing extra damage versus those Ultralisks. And Zerg is taking the right risks, but he's engaging not very well. Taking the wrong angles, his Ultralisks aren't in the front, he's not fungling, or at least not very well, and I believe he lost most of his Vipers in that fight too. Actually, I don't see any Vipers. No, there's one Viper on the field, but it's kind of just chilling. And an Observer finally pops out, so he should be seeing creep being cleaned up fairly soon. And actually, one Roach sent up to this side of the map discovers the hidden 4th base, and he has gotten quite a lot of worth out of this base. He's mined out about half of the minerals, but he doesn't want to lose that gas, and he's actually going to be actually only 2 Roaches on this side, so he could warp in some units. Actually, he could only warp in 1 unit, but 2 Zealots already here. He could warp in possibly something more. That is a Zealot. So you just keep warping in units. He has plenty of production to do so, and that cannon is going to be finishing up, but of course it won't be in range to shoot these Roaches if they do decide to stay back. And actually, how many gateways do we have on the field? We only have... where are the gateways? Why aren't gateways shown? There we go, warp gate. Okay, 14 gateways, that's plenty. But big engagement going to be happening fairly soon in the 4th or 3rd base, I forget which one this is, of the Zerg player. So, quite a large army from Bright. He's possibly going to be losing that Mothership Core to... just kidding, he doesn't, but he might have if he was not paying attention. Good macro coming out from him, though. And army actually looks like he's going for a counter-attack. Indecisive about what he wants to do, running back and forth, splitting off a few Roaches of his army to this potential 4th base, but there's nothing there. Actually, 2 Templar running up there. What are they doing? Linkage could get a nice free victory there, killing off some Templar, but these Roaches are just going to run right by. Actually, no cannons on this base either, and this Templar does not have enough for a storm. Not enough for there to be a warp and not enough supply left over, but he is losing some probes that could provide him with enough to warp it in. And these Roaches being annoying, burrowed there. 5th base being re-established. Actually, this is now the 4th base, but being re-established once again. And Roach is going to be running over to this 4th base of Bright, actually just now putting guys into the gas, and getting a few probes, but losing the Roaches in the process. And I believe there is an Observer in this army, not sure where it is though. The very back with the Mothership Core, so all these units are just going to be dancing around behind the mineral line until that Observer gets there, and he's going to be getting a few free Roaches. This 5th base actually now being set up, and this base is going to be shut down for sure. Of course, this may prompt Bright to go for a counterattack into the main or the 3rd base of the Zerg player, but he has gotten the worth out of this expansion by far. He has mined out about 2/3 of the minerals, and he is actually going to be cutting this army off, so this army has nowhere to retreat to once Bright's army gets into position. And this has pretty much been a slow death for Bright. One Ultralisk getting stuck in those Stalkers. But this actually could be a bit beneficial for him, because he could come from 2 sides, just keep his army up here until he has enough reinforcements to force a fight from both sides. And these Infestors actually in the other side of the Ultralisks. So we may be seeing a quick victory from this point. Drones being sniped off and just a little bit more economic damage, and this is a very nice concave. He wants to basically wait out his opponent. If he can just send a few units here and there in order to pick off bases, he will be doing very well. And it looks like actually counterattack coming from Linkage, so playing smart. There are a few cannons here, but I believe this is too many Zerglings for those, and he's just going to be running right in. These cannons are no chance. Lots of Zealots being warped in though. Those aren't Zealots, those are probes. There we go. lots of Zealots being warped in, so this is going to be shut down. And 5th base, 4th base, I forget which one it is. Too many bases being killed off. But the base being killed off for the Zerg player, and if we look at the income, actually both players are still fairly even, but a base being set up on the south side of the map once again, and this time there isn't a whole lot that... Ooh, lots of Banelings morphing in. But there isn't a whole lot that he can do to counterattack this. There's a pylon being set up, so he can warp in Zealots if he wants to. But these Ultralisks and this half of the army are pretty out of position. Lots of Banelings rolling in. He actually has nothing to deal with this. They're going to be losing a lot of probes here. And this is actually a pretty big deal. He could also potentially pick off this pylon, but killing a lot of probes. Finally, an engagement happening on this base for the Zerg player. Protoss player gets fed up and runs up the ramp. He's going to be picking off the hatchery, possibly chasing down the units from on the top of the ramp, and a storm going down. That Ultralisk isn't going to live for very long, and he does spot that the burrowed observer, however, is going to remedy that. Zealots being fungal to death, never something that you see a whole lot. And long distance mining coming again. Income tab shows that the Protoss actually isn't mining at all, and there's basically nothing that he can warp in. He has no probes out on the map. He has 6 here and 1 on the 4th base, but he has no income, and the Zerg player is still mining. So if the Zerg manages to somehow wait out the game, he will be able to get more even with the Protoss player, but at this point, with this much of a supply deficit, it would need to be a miracle. Of course, with the Ultralisk, with the Infestors, he can continually produce those infested Terrans, but GG comes out from Linkage, and 3-0 for XT right now. I don't remember, I think it's a best of 7. So, one more game, possibly 5 more games coming out from these players. But very nice patience coming from Protoss player. And I'm going to get some water.